Hey, hey,
And
hey.
we're live.
We're back. Excited to be here for another episode of Relationship Topia, all things relationship with God, relationship with yourself, and relationship with others. We believe that relationships make the world go round. Well, the Bible tells us that actually. Relationships make the world go round. I don't know.
Go round and round.
This is your co-host, Dr. Terrell Ravenel. I am the founder and visionary behind Wives Who Win, a global kingdom movement of wives and those that desire to get married, helping those women to transform their life and relationships so that they are in a position to help others do the same. And it all starts with their relationship with God and then self, and then they are in a better position to have those relationships with other people and to pour into those other relationships. So that's who I am. My co-host here, Jill Speaks Truth, will let you know who she be out here in these relationship topia streets.
Hey, y'all. Hey, it's your girl, Jill Bullock, aka Jill Speaks Truth. Super excited to be here and really just founder and CEO of Be Transform Networks. As Trell said, it's all about really is that's founded about your mindset and helping to renew your mind as it pertains to your relationships. The three areas Trell mentioned, the core areas, plus just your time and your money. So all things relationship. And I tend to work with career women who lead on their jobs and who are looking for fulfillment and looking to launch into their life calling so they can just experience more fulfillment and freedom in their life. So that's it. That's all.
That's
And
it.
I will be remiss if I don't say that, of course, I'm an author, and that's one of the things that that I help service women with is authorship and helping them to get their story out to the world.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, Jill, I have to make one reference on the last episode. I mentioned the book by Bill and Pam Farrell. I think I said women are like spaghetti and men are like meatballs. It's actually
Meatballs, yes, you did. It was waffles. Men are like waffles.
men are
I
like
meant to say it, but you were so
waffles.
far away from it.
I know. I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. And I looked behind me because
I
the book
got
is
that
literally
book.
behind me. It's bitter like waffles and women like spaghetti, and the whole reference behind that is like men compartmentalize their thoughts and all the things. So yeah, we might get into that at some point. But yeah, so I wanted to make that reference on
I
today.
thought that was so cute with the meatballs, though. That was very creative.
That's why mine work like spaghetti, meatballs, Kool-Aid, sugar. You know,
Right?
you know.
Listen, all things
So
is mixed together. You know, she was thinking like a woman. She's thinking all things mixed together, spaghetti, meatballs. Come on. Of course, it
there
would
you
be
go.
waffles for men. It would be waffles for
Like, I don't even go
men.
together. Right.
Right.
You know, my husband often teases, and this is getting into the conversation because we are talking about the significant differences between men and women, and particularly the psychology of a man. And my husband always teases me when he feels when I say random things. So we'll talk about a certain topic, and then my mind automatically would think about something that's connected to what we're already talking about. So I will share that thing, and he would say, "Well, where did that come from?" That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I'm like, yeah, actually it does. And then I have to give him the whole synopsis of how the two things are congruent or together. And he's like, oh, okay, you're right. But that goes to show you that we think differently, or how we think is different.
Wow. Yeah, it's so true. And a lot of times I know when I start talking to my husband, he'd be like, context, context. I'd be like, oh, you didn't know what I was just thinking. Like, I thought you were like right there in mid thought, like in mid thought. He's like, no, I'm not in your mind. I'm like, okay.
Exactly.
Note to self. Note
Yeah.
to self.
Yeah. A lot of times we're thinking about a
So
conversation that took place earlier that day or yesterday, and we're just still adding on to that conversation.
that part, like, you don't remember when we left off at 3 o'clock earlier today. Like, just let you know.
Right. Right. So we're in part two of the psychology of a man. Last week we talked about the men being able to express themselves and how they express themselves. We combated the lie or the misnomer, if you would, that men do not express themselves, so they don't know how to express themselves. And we have learned, and will continue to learn, that is not that they don't know how to express themselves or that they refuse to. However, they just have to be in an environment that's conducive to safety. And I would say also, Jill, environment that's conducive to healing and really encouraging them to express themselves. Anytime they feel threatened or insecure in that space, you bet your bottom dollar your dude is not talking to you. I'm just saying. So today we have a couple more that we're going to go over. This is probably going to be, I don't know, a 3 or 4 part series. Who knows? Because both men and women are very complex creatures. Simple but complex. And God made us distinctive. He made us both unique. And there's a lot to cover because what we want to be able to do is to help you to understand your men. Well, man, hopefully you only have one. But this is in the context of a relationship. Understand the dude that you're with. And even if you're desiring to get married, to understand that, you know, we've seen far too often relationships break down and divorce happens and things of this nature. And I believe, Jill, that a lot of these separation and divorces can be prevented if we just learn to understand and accept one another and sometimes adjust to each other. You know, I wrote something and I said, you know, adjust to intolerances or learn to tolerate. I don't know if I like the word tolerate. I like the word learn how to accept better, because if I'm tolerating you, I feel like that's a negative association to the word tolerant. You know, you have to tolerate somebody
like the bare minimum, like kind of like endurance.
Yeah.
It's like an endurance with it, like, you know, it's like a struggle.
Yeah, like irritant. So why, you know, just learn to accept one another. And it's hard, I believe, sometimes to accept because of our own beliefs and our own experiences. And we sometimes want to project what we feel, what we think, what we would do, how we would handle it, how we would respond on the other person. So we as women, we have to learn to manage that area so we're not driving the wedge between us and them.
That's good. And it's so important. So important.
So Jill, what are we going over today?
I would say it's so many, we have so many great notes and so many things we can share, but one of the things we wanted to talk about is like just the importance of understanding. And this is something that women need, and sometimes it's a misnomer that thinking that men don't need this too. But we absolutely believe that men need time with other men. Even if they're not the guy that tends to have a lot of friends, even if they're that guy that's like a lone ranger who tend to like to be the introvert and like to spend a lot of time alone. The truth of the matter is that we were never designed to be alone, and that being alone is just not meaning with a partner you're no longer alone. No, but we need people of the same gender that has shared experiences that we can bounce ideas off of. And so what I want to encourage the wives and women, wives in training to do is really, one, if you, especially, one, you got to give them the space. But if your husband is the type of guy that don't necessarily have a lot of male friends or tend to operate in silo, do a lot of isolation, or just really like an introvert, then you can cultivate a community around him and be very intentional. Like, just think about it. Even when you're hosting things at your home, you can be very intentional about the quality, the caliber, and character of the men that you invite based on your female friends and who their husbands, boyfriends are, and who you don't. And so in helping him to formulate that circle, and that can be like supplementing to what he already has. And for the friends he already had, definitely encourage him. Hey, you haven't spent time with Jerome in forever. You guys maybe should go out and just have a guys' night out, or, I don't know, enjoy your man cave. You guys, kind of let's have some time in the man cave, or whatever that thing may be. And sometimes men even, and this may be a little controversial with some men like to go on like just a bros retreat, just like the two guys, maybe take some time off, whatever the case. So whatever your level of comfort is. But we do want to encourage that, because sometimes when we're not encouraging it, it may be perceived that we don't like it. It may be perceived that we're against it. And sometimes when they do it, we may feel envious or some level of jealousy, especially if we feel like we're not getting the time that we need. And so it's important that we encourage them, because spending time apart is so good for couples. I've heard so many couples talk about how just being away from each other helps. And that's why, come on over. And I don't think it's it's not new news to anyone that COVID really took a toll on a lot of relationships. And it wasn't because people didn't get along as much. It wasn't so much that people didn't like each other. It's just like you're so up and close to somebody all the time. You don't have that time and space to miss, to kind of have a longing for that person. And the truth of the matter is, familiarity breeds contempt. Familiarity breeds contempt. So when we can create a level of space, even if it's for a night or a weekend, sometimes that can be very beneficial to a relationship, because it kind of gives you something to look forward to when they come back, and go from there. So that's what I would say about the bros time, creating a space for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's some good stuff. And I want to ask a few questions because, while we do want to encourage our husbands to have those male relationships, we do have to also understand that we cannot pick their friends. Now, granted, your man may have a friend that you don't necessarily agree with. So in that scenario, again, you can't pick his friends, but what if there is a friend that you don't agree with, a male friend that you may not agree with based on, I don't know, their lifestyle, based on, how they move or whatever the case may be? Do you think it's the wife's place to shut that relationship down or tell him that he should not be friends with that person, or should she, kindly and gently share her thoughts and opinions about this person and then pray and allow God to do the rest? Like, where does that begin and end?
Hold up. So your question is, if he has a guy friend that's
you don't agree with? No, that you don't agree with, that you don't like. He has a guy friend that you don't agree with or you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
That was my question. Like, how do you respond to that as the wife, as his wife, not the friend's wife, your husband's wife, as your husband, as you, the wife
I frozen?
of your husband? You were. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I think I got the gist of the question. Hopefully I'm clear now. So what I would say is definitely the latter, being more gentle, and something, be careful with that. You may give more context if it's asked, but definitely what I found is like trying to tell people what to do. People despise that. They feel like they are not being independent. They feel like you're trying to control them. And so you can't like give people orders, direction, especially men. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to feel like men. Men want to feel like men. They want to feel like they're in control. They want to feel like they're leading, they're making decisions, and they don't need their wife, which if we do that, they then turn to more like a motherly figure trying to dictate anything. Even if we disagree, we can say, well, Jerome kind of got a lot of stuff going on. He knows what you're talking about oftentimes. Be careful with that. That's enough influence right there. We don't got to go any further.
Right. And we have to resist the urge to continue saying something, because although I absolutely agree, you share your piece, you give your 2 cents, and you move on. So let's say your husband is John. If John continues to want to hang with Jerome after you've shared your piece, you have to reduce and resist the urge, I guess I should say, to say something further. You can't be walking around biting your lip. You can't be walking around pouting when he's going out with Jerome. You can't be, saying little remarks and little skittish things, because we do that as women, especially when we feel that they are not taking our direction or, taking our advice, I guess I should say. And to your point, men do not like to be demanded to do anything from a man, from a woman, or from anyone. So we have to be careful with that and just really, learn how to manage our emotions and feelings when it comes to things that our husbands do that we don't necessarily agree with, because we're not going to be 100% agreeable. We're not going to be 100% agreeable 100% of the time. We're not going to be 100% agreeable 100% of the time. And we have to be okay with that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So important. So important, which really takes us to the next point that we wanted to share. And it kind of spin off of the first one, but it's still a little different because the first one we're saying bro time and spending time with other men. And then sometimes though, guys just want to spend time by themselves. Um, they need more space. A lot of times men solve problems better in isolation, especially if there's tension that's happening. But sometimes just in GP, they may just feel like they just need to take a step back and get a breather. Again, especially coming out of the COVID climate, and especially a lot of people still working at home, and you just end up bucking up against each other all the time, and it could just become a lot. And sometimes you just need to take a time out, or you just need to take some time to retreat. And it may not be any adverse thing. It just like we got to remember that we're individuals first, and all of us have individual things in our mental that's going on from challenges we're dealing with. Maybe if you have a 9 to 5 in your entrepreneurial journey, maybe even in your level of fulfillment, not being where you want to be, maybe not having the clarity in your life purpose, maybe having a struggle in the spiritual department. I mean, it could be a myriad of things, and not even including aging parents and so many people being part of the sandwich generation. There's just so many pressures. Kids, grown kids needing money. It's just so many things that people are dealing with on an individual level. And one of the things we got to remember is that don't make everything about us and don't internalize it. Understand that this person is an individual first. And I'm learning, this. I don't always come like, oh, I'm the authority and this is what I know. I've been practicing this for the last 15 years. No, some of the stuff I'm learning and that's not effective. Okay, it is not really about me, and not to make it about me, because sometimes we can end up having this false, and I think I said this on last episode, the level of false shame or false blame. No, why you don't want to be with me? Nah, girl, I just want to go on a silent retreat. It's okay. It's a thing now, in case you missed it. And we have to have enough trust in that moment. And I want to touch on trust, because that can get delicate, because that's going to come up when you're talking about that individual time. And I'm going to pass the mic to Trell at this point. The trust is going to come up, because if he wants to go on a self-retreat, you have to have enough trust that he's going to be a man of integrity and do what he said he's going to do, and not feel that there's any type of alternative motives, or he's going to do anything inappropriate. And I will tell you, Lord forbid, even if he is you worrying, speculating, thinking about, and contemplating isn't going to help. It actually only is going to make it more likely, because you're channeling that energy and vibration. And it's really a thing, whether you want to call it spirits, whatever you want to call it, but that energy is transferred, right? It's never lost. And so we don't want to get caught up in that. And if we do have any, I hate to use the word insecurities, because it may not be insecurities, it may be real relevant reasons why you have trust issues, or maybe not be trusting, maybe because of maybe not always being told the truth. Maybe there's been some indiscretions in the past. So you may have validity, but if you're in this still now, you have to make a choice to trust that they're either in this moment doing the right thing, or that it's going to come a point in time that they're going to get there. That's going to serve you more than any type of speculation or obsession and worrying, because then that's just going to put more damper on a situation and it's going to weaken your connection and make it even more likely that will happen. So it's kind of like funny how it all works, if that makes sense. But I'll leave that there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I wrote a book, Wives Who Win. And in that book, I share about how women need to get a life, because that's very important. A lot of times we don't want our men to have that time, because we're used to being together, right? You see a lot of couples that get married, and I hear people say this as well. Some couples like, oh, me and my husband, or me and my wife do everything together. We're always together. I mean, that looks cute, but it's really not healthy, because God made us relational. And that means that he called us to have relationships with other people outside of our spouse, other healthy relationships with other people outside of our spouse, because our spouses cannot give us everything that we need. They don't have the ability to do that. They're not equipped to do that. They're not all knowing, all doing, all seeing. They're not omnipresent. So they can't be everything that we need. So it's really unhealthy to solely make only your spouse your number one friend, or your only friend, I guess I should say, only friend in that circle of friends. So women, as women, we need to make sure that we are fulfilling our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations, that we're going after the things that we have been assigned to go after even prior to marriage. And I talked about Wives Who Win and why I initially created that space, and it was partly for that reason, for women to know that you're more than just a wife, you're more than just a mother. Those are titles that you hold, but at the core of who you are, God has called you and purpose for you to do some other greater things outside of being a great wife and a great mother. And I see, Jill, so many women are discouraged. So many women, are in marriages for 10, 15, 20 years, and 20 years down the line, when they've basically followed their husbands, be it, he was in the military, or his job took priority, his education took priority, everything about him and his life and his career and his future took priority, and hers took the back seat. A lot of women become resentful. A lot of women become bitter, and he's living his best life because he went to college. He may have joined some type of societal group or something of that nature. He may have developed friendships along the way, and he is literally living his best life, and here you are raising children, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not trying to shame anybody for doing that. Children are beautiful. Having a family is beautiful. However, you have to be willing to create the life that you love, as much as he's creating that life that he loves. So I want to say that women, we need to make sure that we are fulfilling the hopes and dreams that God placed inside of us. We look at Ruth in the Bible, before she met her Boaz, her husband, she was doing what God had called her to do. Esther, all of these women, they were doing what God had called them to do. They were not just sitting on the sideline waiting for a man, and then when they got married, just kind of gave up their life. So we can look at role models in the Bible. What I would say, Joe, because you touched on it as it pertains to insecurities, I feel like a lot of times it is insecurities. And I feel like when it is the insecurities, and not that anything's wrong with insecurities, because we all have them, but we have to learn how to confront them and conquer them so that they won't conquer us and conquer our relationships. It's okay if I feel a certain way about this scenario. So what I want to say as it pertains to feeling that certain way is it is helpful for us to reflect on our past instances and relationships and see how we may have approached those relationships that may have a familiar tenet as to what's happening in our current marriage relationship. Let's see if there's anything in our past, and this doesn't always have to have a past connection, but a lot of times it does. If there's any relationship in our past or anything in our past that may be connected and may be contributing to how we're feeling right now, what we're experiencing right now, and how we're showing up in that marriage relationship. And just by having that information, having that knowledge is going to help us to show up differently and better in that relationship. So when he does go out with friends, even when he wants to retreat with himself, we're not always thinking about us. You said it, Joe. We're not always thinking, oh, it's about me. He doesn't want to be around me. He doesn't like me. He's tired of me. Or, you're making, it has nothing, many times it has nothing to do with you, has everything to do with him. Look at the job that he may have that may be extremely demanding. Look at the people that he may work with or for that may be extremely needy or high pressure. There are a variety of things that he internally may be experiencing that you have absolutely no idea or do not have privy to, and he's not necessarily sharing because he's trying to put on this representation of a man, and which by how we know it, and we talked about that in the first episode, even in how we looked at our father and how we may view men. So he may have that same representation as a man and not wanting to worry you about what's going on in his world. And I would say two more things. If we are having feelings about him, retreating and being by himself and taking time, and we are having negative feelings about that, or we refuse to accept that, we have to constantly renew our mind about what marriage looks like, what the dynamics between a husband and wife should look like, what a healthy dynamic look like. Because granted, many of us did not have healthy marital role models. Let's just state the facts. The facts are obvious. Many of us did not have healthy role model relationships as it pertains to marriage in our immediate household. I'm not saying that your neighbor may not have had it. I'm not saying a best friend may not have had it with his or her parents, I'm not saying you may not, you didn't see it on TV. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in your immediate household, many of us did not have that healthy marital relationship dynamic. So we have to constantly renew our mind as it pertains to what marriage should look and feel like, so that we are not projecting our old thoughts, old behaviors, old mindset based on what we've learned before. And then the last thing, we want to make sure that regardless of what he's choosing to do, that we are creating, and I would assume healthy, he's creating, he's wanting to pursue healthy habits. We want to create a space conducive to restoration, healing, and growth. And we want to always create that space, understanding that we're constantly evolving, we're constantly changing. So we have to leave room for that. And that's all I have to say as it relates to that.
No, that's good. And it's so important. And I would just add before we go to the next point is that if you are feeling a level of insecurity or feeling like something's off, try to address it in a very loving way and see if you can get to it. And not that you don't want to spend a lot of time focusing on problems, but if there's something bothering you, a lot of times, if you, rather than express that complaint, express desire, that'll help you to be able to increase your level of comfortability or discomfortability, go from discomfort to more comfortability if you're able to work through that rather than just ignoring it, act like it doesn't bother you, and it does. So you don't want to do that. So absolutely. Lastly, let's see. Did we want to go into the needs, or we want to put that on another thing and just go into the third point?
We can talk about the needs next week.
Okay.
That can be part 3. Yeah.
So, okay. Lastly, we will say that men like praise too. Actually, men love praise too. And sometimes with the whole, maybe you call it adoration, or what do you call it? I guess I don't like the word flattery, but I guess to some degree it kind of
like your ego stroke.
Yeah, they do. And so yes, praising him about how he looks, but even praising him about something that he's accomplished. A lot of men are driven by their work, by what they do, and they love when people acknowledge and recognize the work that they're putting out in the world, and let them know, because in that moment you're saying, I see you, I recognize you, and you're a big deal in this moment. And listen, because if you're not, there's so many in a serious way the gaps of being praise and all things. If you're not, even do it. Some people mean quote unquote harm by it, and some people are doing it out of strategy to try to win somebody over. So in just so you got those feelings, you gotta let that go and say, how can I pull this man forward? How can I build him up?
So I think Jill's line went off, but basically she's sharing how men love to be praised as much as women. And I feel that we, again, going back to that exterior of men and us constantly looking at him as a, hard exterior factor, taking care of business, leading, and not emotionally engaged. Sometimes we forget that they are human beings just like us, and they desire the same things that we desire. So as women, we have an extreme opportunity to be able to validate them in that way. And no, he may not be doing everything that you desire. He may not have all of his things together, and he may still be working on some things, but we can find the good in any situation. We can find, him worthy of that level of praise, regardless of the expectations that he may not be meeting. Jill, when you first started, you were talking about how men like praise, and what I was thinking about with that when you first started saying that is that we don't know what they deal with outside of the home. So the home should be a place of refuge. It should be a place of protection. Again, it should be a place of a safety net for them. They should, men should not go out in the world and have to fight and then also come home and have to fight with their wife and be disrespected by their wives, be disrespected by their children. You know, he may be on a job where he's constantly being demanded to do things by his boss, and you don't want to come home and do the same thing. So we want to make sure that we are not holding our feelings on our shoulders and offering that level of praise. Joe, you can go ahead. You were going out quite a bit, so I don't know your I don't know how much of it
yeah,
got.
I kind of got kicked out. I would just add to it, because sometimes it doesn't always have to be it. Sometimes it may be like Trell saying, not saying negative things or bringing them down or whatever. Sometimes too, it could be lack of attention and not making them feel seen and acknowledged. So you may not be doing anything. You may be minding your business, working on your purpose, your calling, your ministry, the children, and missing it. My pastor,
you are doing
said
something.
yesterday,
You're neglecting him. You are doing something.
Yeah. My pastor said yesterday, and this is still a controversial statement, but I like what he said. He said a lot of people think that communication, and we've said this many a time, communications issue, communications. He said, well, I want to challenge that communications issue. He said a lot of times prioritization is the issue. And a lot of times what's happening is we're not prioritizing communication. We're not prioritizing connection. We're not prioritizing one another. And we're doing everything else except for giving the time and attention, that's due to our partner. And then that's when things start to fall apart. And that's when disconnection and things start to happen. So we have to be intentional about being present. And as you said, Cheryl, a long time ago, I feel like you said this maybe 8 years ago or so, you would talk about not allowing your relationship going to autopilot and just doing the same rigmarole. So you got to be very intentional. You can't build a relationship based off what you do. I don't. So the idols don't make no relationship. It's got to be I do. What it's not that when you was at the Austin, you didn't say I don't. You said I do. I do. What are you doing? How are you being? And focus on that, and not so much of what you're not doing and what's not happening, but what is happening. Because even, especially in long-term relationships, it can kind of get, you got to keep it spicy. You got to keep it spicy. I'm gonna leave it there. We can go on, and we will keep the conversation going. But that's it. That's all for today.
Well, I do want to offer just 4 ways on how women can offer, or 4 ways on how women can effectively praise their men. And then I also want to give some following tips so that they can do that. So the first way is validation and recognition. Okay. So just like women, men seek validation. We're saying that he seeks recognition for his efforts, what he's doing, his accomplishments. So praise can boost his self-esteem, his confidence. It can reinforce his sense of worth, him feeling worthy of being your husband, worthy of being the children's father, worthy of being the leader, worthy of being the head, worthy of being, the provider, the protector, whatever other role he may play. Number 2, motivation and encouragement. Praise can serve as a powerful motivation for your husband, inspiring him to continue working hard. That's a positive reinforcement. The more he hears, praises, the more he's going to do. If he know that there's something positive on the other side of that, the more he's inclined to do that. And the opposite is true as well. If he's hearing negative about certain things, then he's going to withdraw. Number 3 is connection and intimacy. Praise can strengthen that emotional bond between you and your husband. So when we praise our men, it communicates that we care for him. It communicates respect, and men spell love, RESPCT. It communicates admiration, fostering a deeper connection into the relationship. And number 4, affirmation of masculinity. When men often face these societal expectations that we were sharing before, high demanding job, or, just the stressors of life and things of that nature, for them to be strong, for them to be competent, for them to be successful, for them to be this, that, and next. When we praise them for their strengths and their skills and qualities, it affirms a sense of masculinity, and it can help counteract any stereotypes that may undermine their self-image as men. So those 4 things was validation and recognition, motivation and encouragement, connection and intimacy, and affirmation and masculinity. So to effectively do this, what we need to consider doing as women, when we're giving them the praises, when we're stroking the ego, when we're encouraging them, we need to be specific. We don't need to just give generic responses. Be specific about how we appreciate them. Give specific examples about how or why we admire them. Point out a particular action, a particular quality or characteristic or behavior that you witness and that you can commend him on. Number two, be genuine. We don't want to be fake out here in these streets, just saying things just because to get his attention or to get something from him or using it as a manipulative tactic. We want to be genuine. So authenticity is a key to when we give praise. We want to make sure we're being our authentic self and our words are coming from a place of sincerity and genuine appreciation. Number three, I said it earlier in another context, but we want to make sure that we're using positive reinforcement. We're reinforcing positive behavior again by praising that behavior. And what this does, it encourages our husbands to continue exhibiting that behavior that's worthy of praise. And then number four, the way we do this is by showing physical affection. I know a lot of people struggle with physical affection, physical touch, because many of us were not hugged and touched and, physically shown love by people that were close to us. So this is a hard nut to crack for a lot of people, but we want to make sure that we're showing that physical connection. Physical touch can also be a form of praise and affirmation, whether that's a touch on the hand, a touch on the shoulder, a touch on the jaw, a kiss on the cheek, or, a simple hug, a simple holding of the hands, or any of these things. All of these things communicate appreciation. It communicates respect. It communicates, I need you, I want us, and those things can go a long way. So that's what I'll share with you all today. I know we are at our time, and those are my final words for this episode, Jill.
Well, that was good stuff. I try to write down what you said, but I think I missed the third one. But hold on, let me see. Because you give two lists. You gave 4 things, and then I think you gave like another sub list. So in that first list, you said validation, recognition, motivation, encouragement. What was the third one on that list?
Connection and intimacy.
Okay. And then you said affirmations and masculinity?
Affirmation of masculinity. So affirming his masculinity.
I thought you were saying, and I'm like, how can it be affirmation? So affirmation up. So just reaffirming, like, oh, your biceps, or something like that. Oh, I love the way you lead, or I love the way you.
Absolutely. Okay. Praising his strengths, his skill sets, his qualities, those things. Yeah. And then the second list was effectively how we can do those things. So how do we do these things? So that was being specific, by being genuine, by using positive reinforcement, and then by showing physical affection. And also that physical affection, let's say your dude gained some weight, or, people don't realize that men also struggle in that department. We'll have to do opposite episode on that as well. Their physical fit, like some men struggle in that area. They have low esteem in that area. So even if he's gained some weight, or, he may not be able to keep up with himself as he used to or normally would, you touching him and you showing praise to his physical, oh my God, he might not say anything or give that expression externally, but you better believe inside he is jumping up and down. He is loving it. So we want to make sure that we are in tune with that. Because a lot of times women, they say, oh, we want to be told we're beautiful and we want our compliments and things of that nature, but men do too.
Yeah, that's good stuff, True. Oh man, this was another rich episode, and we definitely want to encourage you guys to apply these things one at a time. You're not going to be able to do everything all at once. Maybe just choose that one thing you think is going to be most impactful in your situation. And also, we want to invite you guys to hop in our DMs. We're constantly working on our titles and our topics, and we're going to start creating a collection of questions and hot topics that people are asking. And so we're just here to be a resource, and it don't always have to be a relationship with a man. Like I think the first 10 or so we talked a lot about our walk with God. So again, it could be about our relationship with God, a relationship with self, and relationship with others. And so we do look forward to also bringing some other people on the platform to share their 2 cents, as we have in the past, but even to a greater extent. So we'd love to hear from you. Share this and implement this, and invite somebody else to join us this week. Can't wait to see you. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.